Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're taking a deep dive into something really fascinating, something with the power to completely change how you approach, well, pretty much everything in life. We're talking about those tiny little things we do every day, the habits that seem so insignificant on their own, but that actually, as we'll find out, hold incredible potential.
Exactly. It's those little things, those small, consistent actions, those habits that often fly under the radar, but end up shaping who we are and what we achieve in really remarkable ways.
We're going to be exploring this idea using a fantastic book as our guide, Atomic Habits by James Clear. We'll be using excerpts from the book, kind of like our roadmap for this journey. And the goal for you, for all of this really, is to really get a handle on how these seemingly insignificant daily improvements, when you add them all up, can lead to some pretty amazing results.
It's about understanding that it's not always about the huge, dramatic changes. It's about those consistent, often overlooked little steps that we take day after day.
Yeah, it's about the long game. And to show you what I mean, I think it's really helpful to look at James Clear's own story. This isn't just theory for him, it comes from his own life. So try to picture this. High school baseball player, barely gets any playing time, like a grand total of 11 innings played, that's it. Not exactly the picture of a future star athlete,
Not
right?
quite the typical path to
But
greatness.
then, just a couple of years before that, he's in a medically induced coma. He's been hit in the face with a baseball bat. Pretty brutal accident. Multiple facial fractures. He initially lost his sense of smell, even had his left eye kind of, well, protruding. It took months of really intense recovery.
Wow, that's intense.
But here's the kicker. Just 6 years later, this same guy is named the top male athlete at Denison University and gets this super prestigious award, ESPN Academic All-American. Only a tiny percentage of student athletes across the country even get that honor. So, I mean, think about that journey for a second, that transformation.
Yeah, 6 years. That's a pretty short amount of time to go from such a serious setback to reaching that level of achievement. Makes you wonder what changed, what happened during those years.
And, for Clear, it wasn't about some sudden burst of talent or anything like that. What really made the difference were these small daily disciplines he started focusing on in college. While his roommates were up late playing video games, he was making sure he got enough sleep. Even in that typical messy college dorm, he made an effort to keep his room tidy.
Those might sound like pretty small things.
They do, right. But he actually credits them with being this foundation. They gave him this feeling of control. And slowly he started rebuilding his confidence, kind of like brick by brick.
It's like those basic habits, the sleep, the organized space. They gave him the stable base to actually build on.
Hmm.
Without that, it's hard to move forward, let alone excel.
And this is where the whole idea of compounding comes in. Clear uses this really great analogy, compound interest, like with money.
Yeah.
And it totally makes sense here. Just like over time, your money grows faster and faster with compound interest, our habits have this same multiplying effect. He talks about getting 1% better each day. Now, on its own, 1% doesn't seem like much at all,
Right.
but stick with it for a whole year, and that tiny improvement actually adds up to being 37 times better. It's pretty crazy when you think about it. But on the flip side, if you get just 1% worse every day, well, you're practically down to zero by the end of the year.
So those small changes each day, whether they're good or bad, they really snowball over time. And often we don't even realize it's happening until much later.
Totally. Okay, so we're seeing the potential of these tiny habits, but how do we actually get good at building them? Well, this is where Clear brings up something really important, a real shift in how we think about things. He says, instead of always chasing big, ambitious goals, we need to focus on building effective systems.
He makes this really interesting distinction between goals and systems. It's like
Right.
this. Goals are like where you want to go, your destination. But systems, those are the actual routes you take, the steps you follow to actually get there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Clear points out this kind of flaw with just focusing on goals.
Yeah,
Winners and losers, they often have the same goals.
that's true.
Think about it. Athletes, they all want to win the championship. Entrepreneurs, they all want to build a successful business. It's not the goal itself that separates them.
Right. And that's where survivorship bias comes in. We see the people who made it, who achieved their goals, and we think, oh, it's because they had this huge ambition. But we don't see everyone else who had those same big goals but didn't make it.
Yeah, and what often makes the difference is the systems they had in place or didn't have in place.
It's the daily grind, the consistent effort, the routines they follow. That's what ultimately moves the needle.
Which brings up this really important idea, falling in love with the process. If you're only focused on hitting that end goal, you're always going to feel like you're failing until you actually get there. But if you learn to enjoy the system itself, the actual work you're doing, then every time you engage in that system, you're winning, you're making progress.
That's a huge mindset shift, and it's really empowering. You're not waiting for some distant future to feel good about your efforts. You're finding satisfaction in the work itself, in the journey.
He even talks about this yo-yo effect that can happen when we're only focused on the goal. Imagine someone who trains super hard for a marathon. They hit their goal, they cross the finish line, and then boom, they stop running completely. The goal was the only thing driving them, and once they reached it, there was no system to keep them going.
It's like they haven't built a sustainable way to maintain the behavior, so once a goal is gone, the motivation disappears.
Exactly. So the key takeaway here is this. Don't just obsess over those big, sometimes overwhelming goals. Spend your energy designing and building solid, effective systems. And as Clear puts it, and I love this quote, you do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems.
It's such a powerful statement because it really highlights that our daily habits, those seemingly small, repetitive actions, are what ultimately determine where we end up in life.
Okay, so we get it. Systems are super important. But how do we actually build those good habits within our systems? Well, Clear lays out this awesome framework for this, the 4 laws of behavior change. Think of them like a recipe for making good habits almost automatic, and those bad habits, well, a lot harder to slip back into.
This framework's really useful because it takes this complex thing, changing your habits, and breaks it down into manageable steps. It gives you a clear structure to follow.
Absolutely. The first law is make it obvious. So, to get this, we got to understand the basic habit loop. It goes cue, craving, response, reward. Every single habit, good or bad, follows this pattern. The cue is what triggers the behavior, is what gets the ball rolling.
What's really interesting is how our brains are always scanning our environment, both outside and inside of us, looking for these cues that predict rewards. At first, it might be basic things like food or water, but as we learn, we start connecting all sorts of cues with secondary rewards. Things like getting praised, fitting in socially, or even just that feeling of getting something done.
And here's a key point. You don't always need to be aware of the cue for a habit to kick in. It's like with enough repetition, these habits become so ingrained that they're almost completely automatic, which on the one hand makes them really efficient, but on the other hand, if it's a bad habit, it's a lot harder to break.
Yeah, that automaticity, it can be a real double-edged sword. Makes things easier, but can also keep us stuck in those unwanted patterns without us even really knowing what's triggering them. That's why the first step to changing things is often just noticing those habits we already have.
Exactly. And to help with that, Clear suggests using what he calls a habit scorecard. It's just a simple list of all your regular habits, good, bad, and even the neutral ones. Just writing them down makes them more visible, less hidden. But this first law isn't just about noticing your habits, it's about making those good habits, the ones you want, super obvious, like putting a giant neon sign on them. And one way to do that is using something called implementation intentions.
It sounds fancy, but it's really just about deciding beforehand exactly when, where, and how you're going to do something. The format's simple. I will behavior at time and location.
So instead of just thinking, oh, I should work out more, you say, I will go for a run for 30 minutes on Monday morning at 6 a.m. in the park. You've taken all the guesswork out of it.
And there's actual research backing this up. Clear talks about a study in Great Britain where people who made these specific plans for exercising were way more likely to actually exercise compared to those who just had a general intention to do it.
It's about making a clear commitment rather than just a vague idea. Another awesome strategy is habit stacking. This is where you connect a new habit you want to build onto an old habit that's already solid, like a routine you do without even thinking. The formula is pretty straightforward. After current habit, I will do new habit.
So you're basically using those existing routines as triggers for new behaviors. It's like building on top of a foundation that's already there.
And this can work for almost anything. You can say, after I get out of bed, I'll do 5 push-ups. That's adding a bit of exercise. Or after I finish my coffee, I'll write 1 sentence for my book. That's moving forward on a writing goal. Or after I sit down for dinner, I'll put veggies on my plate first. That's pushing towards healthier eating.
Lots of possibilities. The important thing is to make that trigger, that cue, super specific. And the new habit should be something you can do right then and there. Clear even talks about how he got more specific with his own push-up habit, refining it so it was even more effective.
Yeah, he really emphasizes that clarity. A vague trigger, it's easy to miss. But something super specific that grabs your attention and tells you, do this now. Now, another big player in this make it obvious law is your environment. Clear quotes this psychologist, Kurt Lewin, who had this equation, B if you F P E. It means behavior is a function of the person in their environment. So basically, our surroundings have a huge impact on our habits, whether we realize it or not.
Think about it. We often do things just because they're the easiest option, the thing right in front of us. Like, why do you think grocery stores put those tempting, less healthy snacks right by the checkout? Or why are there certain apps that are already on your phone when you buy it?
They're playing on our tendency to take the path of least resistance. So instead of being a victim of your environment, be the architect. Design it to make your good habits super obvious. Want to remember to take your medication? Put it right next to your toothbrush. Want to read more? Leave a book open on your coffee table. Want to drink more water? Have water bottles filled and ready in every room.
Exactly. And on the flip side, make those bad habits harder to do. Want to snack less? Don't even buy the junk food so it's not in your house tempting you. Want to cut down on social media, delete the apps, make it more work to log in. Clear calls these little choices we make throughout the day decisive moments, like, do you get takeout or cook a healthy meal? Bike to work or drive? Do your homework or play video games? They seem small, but they add up.
Each choice is like a fork in the road. And consistently choosing the path that aligns with your good habits, that's how you create real change. Okay, so that's make it obvious. Moving on to the second law, make it attractive.
This law is all about the cravings that drive our habits. The thing is, you don't actually crave the habit itself. You crave the feeling you get from it.
It's important to separate the action from the reward, right? You don't crave smoking a cigarette. You crave that sense of relief it gives you, or maybe the social connection. You don't crave brushing your teeth. You crave that feeling of a clean mouth.
And to show how strong those cravings can be, Clear talks about these supernormal stimuli. He uses the example of these birds, herring gulls, that were shown to be more attracted to a fake egg, this big, brightly colored one, than their own real eggs.
Like you is even more appealing than the natural thing. And for humans, it's things like junk food. It's engineered to be super stimulating, way more than anything our ancestors ate. So we crave it even more, which can lead to us eating way too much.
It's like our brains are getting tricked by these super intense versions of things we naturally like.
Right, it's playing on our deeply ingrained preferences. Now, Clear also talks about the role of dopamine, which is this neurotransmitter in our brains, in habit formation. And it's not just about feeling pleasure when you do the habit. It's actually the anticipation of the reward. That's what releases the dopamine, and that's what makes us want to do it again and again.
So it's not even the reward itself, it's the expectation of it that gets us hooked.
Exactly. So the question is, how do we make those good habits more appealing to our brains? One way is something called temptation bundling. It's basically linking something you want to do with something you need to do.
Like, you only let yourself watch your favorite Netflix show while you're on the treadmill. You're connecting the thing you enjoy with the thing that's good for you.
Or like how TV networks schedule their shows. They'll put a bunch of popular shows back to back so you're more likely to stay tuned in. The enjoyment of one show becomes the temptation to watch the next one.
It's like, over time, your brain starts associating the reward from the thing you want with the thing you need to do. So the thing you need to do becomes more appealing.
It's sneaky, but it works. Now, something else that plays a huge role in how attractive a habit seems is our social environment. We're social creatures. We care what others think. So we're naturally drawn to habits that are considered normal or cool by the people around us.
We want to fit in, right? Clear points out three main groups that influence us. The close people in our lives, like family and friends, the larger group, our community, our tribe, and then the powerful people, those who we see as successful or influential.
He uses this fascinating example of the Polgar sisters, who were all amazing chess players. They grew up in a family where chess was super valued and supported, so from a young age it was attractive to them. It was their normal. He also talks about this study with chimpanzees where they'd rather use a less efficient way to get food if that's what their new social group was doing. They'd rather fit in than be more efficient.
So it's a powerful thing, this desire to belong. If you want to build good habits, one of the best things you can do is join a group where those good habits are already the norm.
Find your tribe, the people who are already doing the things you want to do. That makes it so much easier to stick with it. Now, Claire also talks about how you can reframe your mindset to make those bad habits seem less attractive.
It's like changing the story you tell yourself about the habit.
He gives this example of a book that helps smokers quit by changing their perception of smoking. Instead of seeing it as something cool or stress relieving, they start to see it for what it really is, something that doesn't benefit them. It might even be harming them.
Breaking down those positive associations, really focusing on the downsides of the bad habit and the upsides of not doing it, that can make it a lot less appealing.
At the end of the day, habits are all about feelings and associations. What we like, what we don't like, it drives our choices more than we realize. Okay, that was make it attractive. Next up, the third law. Make it easy.
This one's all about the response in that habit loop, and it comes down to a simple principle. The law of least effort. We're naturally drawn to whatever's easiest.
It's human nature to conserve our energy. And Clear makes this distinction between being in motion and taking action. Motion is all the planning, the research, the thinking about the habit. Action is the actual doing, the practice. And it's so easy to get stuck in motion, to feel like you're making progress just by planning, but really you're just procrastinating.
It's a subtle trap. You feel busy, you feel productive, but you're not actually moving forward. You got to shift from planning to doing.
And a big key to making action easier is repetition. The more you do something, the more automatic it becomes. Claire brings up this cool example of London taxi drivers. They have to memorize all these complicated routes, and studies show that they actually have a larger hippocampus, which is the part of the brain that deals with spatial memory and navigation.
So by doing something over and over, you're actually changing your brain, making those neural pathways stronger.
It's like you're building a mental highway for that habit. So how do we make those good habits easier to do? One way is by priming the environment. That just means setting things up so it takes less effort to do the good habit.
It's about making the good choice the default choice. Claire talks about this guy, Oswald Knuckles, who had this resetting the room strategy. It's just about putting things back where they belong right after you use them, so your space is always organized and ready for the next thing.
It's like removing all those little obstacles that can trip you up. On the flip side, you can make those bad habits harder to do. Want to eat less junk food. Don't keep it in your house. Want to be on your phone less. Make it harder to access those apps. These are all examples of what Claire calls decisive moments, those small choices we make throughout the day. Take out or cook, drive or bike, homework or video games.
Each one seems small, but together they determine what our life looks like.
Exactly. And remember, those decisive moments, they're always going to pop up. You're always going to be faced with these little choices. So another helpful trick is the 2-minute rule. When you're starting a new habit, make it so easy that it takes less than 2 minutes to do.
It's about lowering that initial hurdle.
Right. Instead of read for an hour before bed, it's read 1 page. Instead of do 30 minutes of yoga, it's take out my yoga mat. It's about creating these tiny, easy wins to get the momentum going.
The idea is that once you start, you're more likely to keep going.
And Clear emphasizes this idea. Standardize before you optimize. It means don't worry about making the habit perfect, just make it consistent first. Get it established, and then you can tweak it and improve it.
Focus on the foundation first, then build from there.
Okay, so we've covered make it obvious, make it attractive, and make it easy. Now for the final law, and this is a big one, make it satisfying.
This one's all about the reward at the end of the habit loop. We're more likely to repeat something if it feels good, if it gives us some kind of positive reinforcement.
Seems obvious, but there's a catch. It's called time inconsistency. And it basically means we value immediate rewards more than future rewards.
It's why we often choose that instant gratification, even when we know it might be bad for us in the long run.
Like eating a whole bag of chips, even though we know it'll make us feel sluggish later.
Exactly. It's tough because the good things about good habits, those often come later. And the bad things about bad habits, those often come later too. But our brains, they're wired to focus on what feels good right now.
So to build good habits, we have to find ways to make them feel good in the moment. And for bad habits, we have to associate them with some kind of immediate discomfort.
We gotta hack our brains a little.
Totally. Even small successes along the way, those can send a signal to your brain like, hey, this is working, keep it up. Clear talks about visual measurement, using things like habit trackers to make your progress more tangible.
It's really motivating to see that progress. Like this guy, Trent Dursmid, he had this system where he'd move a paper clip from one jar to another for every sales call he made. Super simple, but it gave him this visual reminder of how much he was accomplishing.
It's like those gold stars we got in school.
Yeah, exactly. It makes it more fun, more engaging. And habit trackers, food journals, workout logs, they all do the same thing. You see your progress, you feel good, you want to keep going.
And when you do slip up, which happens to everyone, Clear has a great rule. The never miss twice rule. Missing once isn't a big deal, it happens. But don't let it become a pattern. Get back on track right away.
It's about preventing that one missed day from turning into a full-blown relapse. Stay resilient, get back in the game.
To make those slip-ups less likely, Clear talks about accountability partners and habit contracts. These are ways to add some extra pressure, either social or even financial, to keep yourself on track. He mentions this guy, Brian Harris, who made a super detailed habit contract with bigger and bigger consequences if he missed deadlines.
Adding that external pressure, knowing there's something at stake, can be a powerful motivator.
It raises the stakes. Finally, Clear talks about how important it is to choose habits that align with your natural strengths and interests. It's much easier to stick with something if it feels like a good fit for you. He compares Michael Phelps and Hicham El Guerrouj, both amazing athletes, but in different sports. Their bodies and personalities were suited to different things.
Finding that sweet spot where your natural abilities meet your interests, that makes the whole process so much more enjoyable. Clear suggests you aim for a balance between exploring different things and exploiting, really focusing on the habits that feel right for you. He even gives some cool questions to ask yourself, like what feels fun to me but feels like work to others. It's about finding what makes you tick.
It's like you're playing a game where you're already set up to win. Now, he also talks about this thing called the Goldilocks rule, which says we're most motivated when we're working on things that are just the right level of challenge, not too easy, not too hard. He uses Steve Martin as an example, how he was always pushing himself in comedy, trying slightly harder material over time to keep it engaging. And Clear also mentions how variable rewards can keep us hooked.
It's like if there's always a bit of uncertainty, a bit of surprise, it keeps things interesting, prevents boredom.
And finally, he emphasizes this idea. To achieve truly amazing things, you have to be willing to fall in love with boredom. Pros, in any field, they understand that mastery often comes down to just showing up and doing the work day after day, even when it's not exciting.
It's about those consistent, mundane efforts that add up over time.
Okay, so we've explored the power of good habits. But here's something important to remember. Even good habits can have a downside.
What's that?
Well, while they're awesome for building skills and making things more efficient, if we're not careful, they can also make us less sensitive to feedback. We can get so used to doing something a certain way that we stop noticing if it's still working or if there's a better way to do it.
Makes sense. It's like driving the same route every day. You're not really paying attention anymore. You're on autopilot.
Exactly. And Clear points out that once you reach a certain level of mastery, your performance can actually plateau or even decline a little if you're not actively seeking feedback and looking for ways to improve. So, to counter that, he emphasizes reflection and review. He gives some cool examples, like Pat Riley, who was this basketball coach. He had this system with the Lakers called Career Best Effort, or CBE. It was about evaluating effort and execution, not just the final score.
So, looking beyond the surface, really analyzing how things are going.
And Chris Rock, the comedian, he's known for constantly testing his jokes, trying different versions, refining them based on audience reaction. Clear also suggests keeping a decision journal, basically writing down your choices and what happened as a result to learn from them.
It's all about staying engaged, not just blindly going through the motions, and realizing that motivation often comes from seeing progress, from feeling like you're moving forward.
All right, so there you have it, our deep dive into atomic habits. Small habits, consistent effort, huge results. That's the takeaway.
And those 4 laws of behavior change: make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. Those are your tools for building good habits and breaking bad ones.
And for you listening, here's something to think about. What's one tiny habit you can start today, right now, using what we've talked about? Make the cue clear, make it appealing, make it super easy to start, and find a way to make it feel rewarding. See what happens, even if it seems small. This is just the beginning of understanding how much you can achieve by harnessing the power of these atomic habits. So what area of your life needs a little atomic boost? Think about it.